Hey, Restoration Nation, Clark here. Um, if it if it looks like I just rolled out of bed, it's because, well, I didn't just roll out of bed, but I certainly didn't do hair and makeup today. Tuesdays and Thursdays, how's that for real? Tuesdays and Thursdays are generally days that I use for writing, creating, building, or something. It's usually not customer facing, it's usually internal. But being that I'm on this streak of discussing storms for one thing, and I'm just kind of like I'm trying to do more content this week, just to push myself to be more vocal. I want to talk about a subject that everyone in this business has had it happen, and this is not a generally. It is what it is. It's just something that happens to everybody. But in the last 2 weeks, or month, it's happened big time, and that's being outbid on a job. It's part of the game. You will not be in this business and you will not win every single job that you actually bid on. And we're usually talking more sizable jobs, larger loss, commercial. It could happen on residential, I suppose. But you go and you're called in by the client to some degree to put a number on it, and if you're a legitimate contractor, you know what you can do it for. You know your numbers, and you know that I'm going to give a great ROM, rough order magnitude, but it's going to include the best practices and standards and laws and things like that. So it might be PPE, and it might be OSHA safety. It could be ICRC S500, S520 standards that I've got to follow protocols, and it's going to require these engineering controls and whatnot. So two cases recently that I want to tell you about, and then I want to talk about in the backside what I know happens a lot of the time, and I think it borderlines on deceptive. You may call it competitive. And I talked about this one. There was a fire in I'm not even going to mention the state anymore. A big fire at a church. Contractor was called directly by someone at the church, a deacon or a member of the board or something. This restoration contractor had done work for that person twice, one directly and one indirectly. Had helped them with a flooded basement, and then they had a family member that had a fire, and this contractor, did an excellent job and won a customer over. So when this church had a fire, they said, "Of course." I can't think of anybody else that I would want to come do here. They were so professional. They helped us through the whole thing. Communication was far beyond expectations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, contractor goes out. It's a pretty serious fire. While it wasn't a full gut. It was a nasty fire. It was a bunch of plastic that burned and covered the whole place. All in, based on VOCs and everything, it was close to $2 million. Well, okay, plenty of coverage in the policy. That's not the issue. Insurance company arrives and writes up their own version of some scope that doesn't even approach the coverage that they need. It doesn't even approach the right work. And they have a number of 750. And something's wrong. Somebody's texted me one of my live feeds. I think it's my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn connection for these lives is not working. So I don't know what that is. Insurance puts an appalling number of, again, the number of one contractor was just under 2 million. Insurance said it's 750. Anybody that's in this business recognizes those percentages. I mean, that's just kind of like their model. There must be a script and an algorithm that they come down to, 28 to 35%. So they offer that, and that of course confuses the church, and the church is like, oh my gosh, and the contractor says that's just the first step. That's just how they play. Well, then they just happen to know a contractor locally, program vendor, that will, what's happening here? Yeah, excuse me, a contractor locally that just happens to be able to do it for 750. Now, we know what's going to happen. Okay, so let me pause there. Just got a text a few minutes ago from a friend that's from this storm, from Hurricane Helene, bidding a really large job, and they lose it by a another company that's a million below them. So almost the same numbers as this other church thing I was talking about. So they were probably 1.8. This other guy came in at 700. Well, here's what happens on both of them. And this is an age-old trick. We can call this deceptive. We can call it competitive. Someone comes in with an initial number of 700, and then over the course of the job, if they plan to do the right job, they change order, and they end up far above or maybe even back at the number the other one was. I mean, contractor one could have done the same thing, but there's a bit of integrity to say I'm going to identify what needs to be done, because those change orders cause complications with insurance carriers and other stakeholders. They're expecting one thing and now it's doubled or tripled. That's a pretty wild thing. It happens a lot. There are a lot of contractors that's how they do it. I don't agree with that way. I don't feel sorry for the ones that lost it, because it's just how the cookie crumbles. But we as an industry have to look at our authenticity and our integrity and just do things straight. Now, there's some people who say, I'm going to win no matter what. I'm going to win this job at 700, and I'm going to just change order the heck out of it on T&M, and they won't be wrong. They will find things that they did not identify in the original scope, probably. But then they're going to be right back at the number, and I don't know. That's just an interesting dilemma that we have in this industry. So I'd like your comments if you've had that happen before, what your thoughts are. Now, listen, if you're someone that gets called in by the carrier and you put in those low numbers, I don't mind, even if it's anonymous. Let me know what the approach is on that, what the mindset is I'm going to come in and just win it, but I'm going to upsell, or change order, supplement over and over and over, and it's going to end up being where I've had jobs where I bid them low because I did not see parts of the job that weren't accessible. So I'm still getting texts here. So anyway, that's just my thought for today. It happens all the time. You can't cry about it. You can't do anything. You just go on. I like to say, if you don't do a big job, it didn't cost you anything. It cost you the trip to go out there to estimate it. Lost revenue is not lost money. It's just not opportunity that you've got. So you go out and get the next one. But I find that to be, and there are a couple of large companies that's their trick. We're going to come in cheap. We're going to get it. We're going to lock it in. We're going to get ourselves planted on site. And then we're going to have to do what we have to do. And no one's going to kick us off because we're already here, and the mobilization costs and demobilization costs doesn't make sense. I don't know. It's just not how I did it. I think the other thing that another large, incredibly large international company does is they'll come in and bid or even invoice from a T&M standpoint. They'll invoice the job final 30% too high, and then get into some negotiations and cut by 20% with the carrier or the client, and they're still 10% over what they probably want to be anyway. So that's another way to do it. I don't know. It just seems like that's what our industry has turned into, is this uber competitive, where we will do things that might borderline ethically and morally not correct. So it's interesting. I think my video is not doing so great today, so I apologize to everybody. Whatever. It's online. It's social media. It is what it is. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope that everyone is finding their groove if they're already mobilized. I know some people haven't yet, and I think that's good. But people are still getting their power back and things like that. So anyway, that's all I've got. Think about that when you're bidding a job. Are you just going to bid it to win it, or are you going to really be a competitive? I like to think in lines of sports. I'm going to show up on the field, and I'm going to be the best to beat the best. I'm not going to use tricks. I'm going to play somebody heads up, straight up. That might not be how everybody runs it. Take care.